Welcome back, friends. In this video, we're going to learn how to add a style sheet and then again how to add jQuery to make the element here movable, draggable, and saveable between page loads. That's the idea for this lesson. So let's begin here. Right click, name of website, in Solution Explorer, go to Add and Style Sheet next. All right. Okay, so style sheet. You can leave it called style sheet, that's fine. Just click OK. So you've got the style sheet here. Now keep in mind that our styling information is pretty small, so if you wanted to, theoretically speaking, styling information can also be placed in the head section. Right there, you see that? But I want to keep files separate, so everything is compartmentalized. So I'm going to put it here in the style sheet.css, a separate file altogether. Let me expand the view here and delete that. So what we are going to do is apply a class to the elements that we have on the page. Okay, now remember, classes are those selectors essentially that allow you then to style multiple elements using that class. So I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say that element, meaning page element essentially, open close curly braces. And then here you are obviously free to be as creative as you want. I'm just going to say border 1 pixel solid brown. That speaks for itself. That's all it is, a 1 pixel solid brown border. That's it. The border radius. That just measures the roundedness of the corners. That's all it is. So 5 pixels. And if you want to know the effect of anything, what do? Well, you create it, you apply it, you look at the effect. You change the value, you run the page, you look at the effect. Change the value, run the page, look at the effect. You see? That's how you build your intuition pretty quickly. Just look at the effects. So the border radius 5 pixels, rounding of corners. Next, background color. Again, this is the one I happen to like. You choose whatever you like. Bisque. Speaks for itself. It's the color of the background. That's all. All right. Next here, padding. So remember, padding controls the space between the content and the border essentially. If you have something very small here, it might look as though the content kind of gets across to the border. You see? So I put enough padding in to separate the content and the border pretty clearly. And lastly, something new here, I'm going to say font family, like that, and then Arial. It's a simple font family. All right, Arial, just the way you have it, for example, in Word. That's all. Okay, so this is our basic styling sheet. Let me just save this. And to apply it, go into main.aspx, into the head section, and just drag a reference in there from the Solution Explorer on the right side. Just like that, you see? So now we have a reference to the sheet in the head section right here of main.aspx. All right, hope you've got that. So that's that. Let's give this one run here just to see what happens. So build it for a second. And this time, I'm going to go into IIS and run it from IIS. So remember in IIS, we have a site called Dashboard. Right click on it, go to Manage Website, and go over to Browse. All right, let's give this a launch here. And notice that this says this kind of error this time if you try to run it. So just here after dashboard.home / type main.aspx. And it looks as shown here. Okay, so now what we need to do is basically add a connection between the style sheet and the element. So to do that, go back into Visual Studio and then go down. And now right on this div, just type here class equals element, like that. That makes the connection between the style sheet and the div that contains our details view. Okay, hope you've got that. We build it. Always build everything and then reload it one time. All right, that looks nicer. The only thing about this content now, as you can see, is that there's a big space to the right of it, which very likely we don't want. So let's fix that. Close this for a second and go back in stylesheet.cs. And here I'm going to say now display and then inline block. Build it again. And I'll fix that big space, get rid of it. Let's take a look. Where is the page? Load it, and you see it's already gone. So remember, you've got the editability, good. You can update, make a new record here. Insert, that's working, correct? You have 1, 2, 3, very good. Everything is working as expected. So this is just the appearance, and the next stage in the process will be to now take this and make it movable, draggable, and savable between page loads, so it's more flexible than just this. All right, so to accomplish this, go into main.spx, make sure you are in source mode, and across the top, remember the key step is what? To add jQuery, correct? So let's do that now. So right-click the name of the site in the Solution Explorer, go down to Manage NuGet Packages, and we're going to add jQuery so that we can make an interactive web page. All right, so make sure you switch over to Browse. All right, I hope you've got that. I just type jQuery here. And then make sure you select the one that is jQuery.ui.combine, so it's got everything that we need selected. And then on the right side, just click Install it into the project. Let this run a little bit. Remember, on the right side in the Solution Explorer, you should see folders being added. Look very carefully. There's a scripts folder that's been added now, for example. And it's growing. And there's another folder called Content on top of it that's added during this process. Keep that in mind. If you look very carefully now, in this panel here, look next to where it says jQuery UI combined. It even shows you a little green circle with a white check mark inside it. You see? And it says latest stable version is installed. I hope you're seeing that, okay? Close that. And now we can make use of it. So first let's add some references to the head section, as we've done before. I'm going to zoom out to about 175%. And let's add some references here. So expand the scripts folder on the right side in the Solution Explorer, and then drag in jQuery, reference to jQuery. And make sure you drag in a reference to the UI also. So the look is shown here. So jQuery is this. And then this here is, again, jQuery UI, user interface elements. All right, the next stage, scroll towards the bottom of the page, past everything that we have created. And right after the form here, I'm going to type script, and we're going to add our jQuery on the bottom, as shown here. So if you looked at the notes carefully from lesson, I think that ends this first small data entry project. If you looked at the notes on the lesson resources, I said when you put jQuery on the bottom in the notes there, that you don't even need the document ready or anything like that, because it's already on the bottom, so it can be more or less assured all the elements you need have loaded, and you can access them with jQuery. So I'm going to do the following here. One more thing is this. Go to the top for a second, and just to show you that you can, you see this div here has this class set to element. And remember that multiple elements can be styled the same way using, for example, classes. And that means over here, notice I have dot and then element, right? Class. And then every element will look like this. But also, you can do stuff like this, and you can say, for example, ID equals, and I'm going to say here dv for details view. Okay, I'm going to call this div. So dv div means details view div. Okay, I hope you've got that. Let me scroll down. On the bottom, I'm going to take care of it with jQuery. So first I'm going to select it. And this code is very similar to the one we've seen before, nothing new. I'm going to say here, and then dv details view div, select the details view div, that draggable, make it draggable first. And perhaps the smartest thing to do here is build it and then run it at each stage, just to make sure everything is working. All right, we load the page here. All right, so first notice this is draggable. That's the first stage in the process. Okay. But then as soon as you reload it, of course, it will snap back to its original position. We don't want that. So besides making it draggable, at the next stage, we're going to say the following now. Window dot, and then on, and then before unload. So right before you basically unload the window, define some logic to be run. So what is that logic? This is the logic where we get the position of the item and we save it to local storage. So I will say variable POS equals, and again selected. So I will say here between double quotes and then dvdiv dot position. So get the position of the object ready for the window unloads essentially. And then once you've done that, then you can save it. Add the curly braces like that. Let me add the curly braces on both sides, top and bottom here, as shown. So get the position of the object and then save it. So I'm going to say local storage dot set item. All right, and then between single quotes dvdiv, comma, and then JSON, and then dot stringify, and then POS. So I've been over this bit here fairly extensively in previous lessons. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I remember set item here, as you can see, is a method or a function. Notice it takes a key, the string. That's how it's saved in local storage, dvdiv. And then it says data :string. That's why you have to use a stringify function with a JSON object to stringify, to make it into a string. And then you can set the value and the key together in local storage. Build it. Let's observe the effect at each stage one more time. So I'm going to reload the page. Give it a second to run. And now right click, go to inspect. All right, go over here to application and expand local storage and see whether there's anything inside. And we don't see anything just yet, so reload the page. And now take a look. Make sure you see the dvdiv, and then it says top 8, left 8. I hope you're seeing that in local storage, okay? And then reload it a few times and see what happens here. Make sure that, it's all good. It's present. Okay, I hope you've got that. So that's good. Now we just need to reconstitute the position when we load the page. So let me close this. And that's the last stage in the process. So I will say here the following variable top left. I'm calling it that because remember in local storage, you've got the top and the left, right? Those are the bits saved on that element. I'm going to say here json.parse. And then I will say local storage. And then get item by the key. And the key, remember, in this case is simply dvdiv, like that. Right, and the last stage, we constitute the position by typing the following. So select the item again. So dvdiv.css, and then top left. Set it to be the top left, and that's it. All right, let me pull this down a little bit so you can see all of it as shown here. Okay, I want to look it over one time. That's good. Local storage get item dvdiv, correct. dvdiv with a hash mark in front of it, correct. And then CSS top left. So build it. All right, I hope you've got that. Let's take a look at a preview here. So remember, the objective now is to reload it and then have the position saved. All right, so now move it to a different position and now look very carefully. You see it is happening now when you do that, but as you can see, it's drifting. You see? Down the page when you do that. So one thing that you can do to take care of that is as follows. Just remember, you can go to the top on this div here, type style, and then position absolute. And make sure the div id divd class element and then style equals position : absolute. Once you've got those things set, it should work fairly well. Okay, so build it again. And then let's reload it one more time. Remember, that's designed to cure the drift. So let's see what happens here. And then reload it a bunch of times. Make sure that if you don't change the position, it's always reloading to the same position. Okay, until you actually pull it and place it somewhere else. And then it should save it to the new updated position, but it shouldn't be drifting anymore across the page. Okay, so that's working as expected. You can see it here with the key and the value in the local storage box. All right, I'm going to shut this down. So let's review quickly. Make sure you add a style sheet similar to this one, or whatever you want. You can be as creative as you like, of course. And then inside main.aspx, make sure that you've got references as shown here in the head section to the style sheet in jQuery and then jQuery UI user interface. Make sure that the div that contains the details view is given these basic attributes and their values. And then lastly, on the bottom, the jQuery looks as shown here. And that is it. I'll see you in the next one.